Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk about Tiffany Sessions. She is a missing woman from Tampa, Florida. She was last seen on February 9th, 1989. She was born October 29th, 1968. So when she went missing, she was 20. She was attending the University of Florida, Gainesville, and she was majoring in business. Her family nickname was Tiffy. And as you could see from the picture, I think she looks like a happy person. Sometimes you can just tell by seeing pictures of somebody what kind of personality they had. She seems bubbly and happy. And she kind of seems like she's from a wealthy family, just kind of like my first impressions. On that's when she was born. So on February 9th, 1989, she apparently lived in the Casablanca East apartments. And she's a college student. So she has a roommate, and she told her roommate she was going for a power walk. So in the 80s and 90s, it was popular to do the power walk where you just like walk really fast, but you're not running. So she was going to do a power walk. And so she left between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. She left her wallet, her driver's license, and her keys because she's just doing a power walk. And she was never seen by her roommate again. So that day she was wearing a white pullover sweatshirt that said Aspen on it. She had red sweatpants and tennis shoes. She had two-tone silver and gold Rolex. Okay. So I think I read that somewhere before, and that's why I kind of thought she was wealthy. Because Rolexes kind of stand for wealth. And she had a Sony Walkman, which, if you're not like from the 80s, you might not know, but they had these little portable cassette players. They called them Walkmans, and people listened to music on cassettes back then. They put the cassette in, and they could listen to their music wherever they wanted to. So she was power walking with a Walkman on. So after 5 hours, so that would have been like 9 or 10 p.m., her roommate started getting worried. And she alerted Tiffany's mother that her daughter was missing. Okay, so that's kind of weird to me. I know the roommate probably doesn't have anything to do with it, but she waited a really long time to get worried. And then she calls the mom and says she's missing. Like, okay. And then the police did not initially handle it as a crime because no crime scene had been found. There was no sign that Tiffany had left her apartment's parking lot or that she had a struggle. But you know, why does there have to be all those signs if she's missing? So basically, people in the area said they saw someone that looked like Tiffany talking to individuals sitting inside a car. So they didn't know if she had entered the vehicle or not. They just know that she was talking. Someone that looked like her was talking to some people in a car. So basically, she's still missing. And there is a $25,000 reward. Now, there were some people who were suspects. So as of 2014, police believe that a now deceased serial killer, Paul Rawls, was responsible for her disappearance and murder. Because at the time, he was working at a construction area near the path where she was last seen. He didn't show up for work on the day that she went missing, but like, what time did he go to work? Because she went missing in the evening. So if he was supposed to be at work during the day, like, is he already planning this? But I think it would be more suspicious if he didn't go to work the next day. But of course, it might prove that he wasn't at work and he had time to do all this. But apparently this loser serial killer kept an address book on all the people he murdered. And they found it. And a lot of the victims line up, you know, to being in there in a cryptic reference. So he didn't flat out say, oh, I murdered this person, here's her name and all that. He would say like their initials. He would maybe just put their first name. And on the Tiffany Sessions, they think he just put number 2989, which is the date she went missing. And they think she was his second victim. So isn't that gross that he kept like a little book about it? It's so gross to me. So he's dead. So that's the only justice we can get from this, is if he did it, you know, he's gone. So he's not out there still messing around trying to find more victims. But the thing is, no one has found her yet. She's still missing. And her mother wrote a book called Where's My Tiffany? And it describes her joy in raising Tiffany and her heartbreak in losing her. Because, you know, even if you know your loved one has passed away, most likely, you know, she has no grave to go to, no closure in that way. And I'm sure a parent wants to bury, like if their child passed away, you want to bury them before you go. Because then if she goes, like if the parents pass away and then they find her years later, Tiffany's body, then they're going to be like, there might not even be any family left to know where to put her, you know, to give her a proper burial. So I think it's possible that this serial killer murdered her, especially since he put that date in his book. I think maybe when people saw her talking to someone, maybe it was just one person. They just thought it was more than one person. And he probably did the old, can you give me directions, like they always do. Ladies, if a man ever asks you directions, just keep walking. They should ask another man for directions. Like, come on. And definitely if you're a kid, an adult should not be asking you for directions, because what do you know? Like, how are you supposed to know? So she was probably like caught off guard because she had music on, and I don't know. You'd think somebody would see her getting pulled in the car. So this is one of those cases, like, where you kind of know what happened to her. It's not like a big mystery. But what if, like, what if the roommate killed her? What if the roommate and the roommate's boyfriend killed her? You know, how interesting that everyone just is like, oh, she got kidnapped and murdered. And it was probably the serial killer that lived nearby. But what if it wasn't? You know, the roommate waited 5 hours to call. And she calls the mom and says Tiffany's missing. I would have called and been like, Tiffany hasn't come back yet. Like, you don't just say, oh, she's missing already. Like, you don't know that she's missing. You just say, oh, she hasn't come back yet. I'm getting worried. I wonder if her roommate was a girl or a boy. So that's like an angle you could go if you're like wanting to look outside the box. The other angle could be she just walked away from it all, but I don't see really that happening because she left all her valuables behind. I mean, it probably is that she was a victim of this serial killer. But, like, what if she had a boyfriend, like an ex? Like, do we know any of that? Like, I feel like some of these cases, like, years later, somebody will be arrested, and then you'll be like, what? I didn't even know there was a boyfriend. I didn't even know he was on the radar. Because we don't know everything. We just hear what's in the news, what's on the internet. And I was kind of that way with Asia degree. I didn't know about the green car. I didn't know that, you know, like there was this green car scene. Because I had heard she ran into the woods. Like, she got scared and ran into the woods. So it's like, we don't hear everything. There's things the police keep from us. And I think that's good that that's it. That's the case. But that's why it's hard to be like a armchair detective. Because we don't get the full picture. But if we did, we may have solved it quicker than the police. Like Delphi, for instance, I had no idea that they knew Richard Allen was on the bridge that day. There was a tip. He called it in himself. If we would have known, like all of us, we would have known he did it. But the tip gets lost. Someone overlooks it. Like, who was the first person that overlooked that there was a man on the bridge that day that the girls got murdered in Delphi? Like, who would overlook that? You're like looking for their murderer. So sometimes it's stuff like that. When you hear it later, you're like, wow, like, that's something that would have made this case solved years and years before it actually was. But I just wanted to talk about Tiffany Sessions. She would be in her 50s now. And she would have had her whole life, you know, to live. And then she'd have another whole half of her life left. And he took that from her. Like, this guy, whoever did it, or girl, I guess, they took that away from her like it was nothing. Like her life meant nothing to them. It was just all about their own selfish, evil motive. And I think that's what's so sad about these cases, is that there's people out there who do not value anyone's life but their own. And they just do stuff like this. And then they just write a little date in their notebook so they can remember it. You know, so rest in peace, Tiffany Sessions, and I'll see you guys in the next one.
No, you told your friend you're not okay, and tell me what's wrong and why you never said you felt that way. And guess you're trying to stay strong and fake a smile until I look away. But I've known you too long, it hurts to watch your blue eyes fade to gray as you fade away, as you fade away.